Hello, welcome to my studio. Today's Tuesday tip is all about writing. Let's get right in it. Everybody has a rhythm beating inside them. It is the heart of their soul and the heart of their body. Some people like to express themselves in many different ways, and some of those unique individuals choose to use poetry as their outlet to use their voice. Today I'm going to give you a brief introduction to all of the different types of poetry, and then we're going to see if we can encourage you today to use one of those forms of poetry to pen your own. If you are an aspiring writer, you're an aspiring poet, and you want to get started on your journey, you don't have to pick a certain prose necessarily. Just voice yourself. This is just going to be a helpful guide to show you the different types of poetry and see if one of them fits your voice. Here are the different types. A haiku is a Japanese 3-line poem. That's with the syllables 5, 7, 5. Those are really quick, blurby poems. And if you look at ancient haikus in literature, they can be so vast. It is almost a sport to try to find the right words to convey exactly what you're saying, not only in 3 lines, but also within 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and then another 5 syllables. A limerick is a humorous 5-line poem. You might see those more with the old-timey commercials where they had a little jingle. A Clerihew is a satirical 4-line poem. Think of satire, can go hand in hand with sarcasm. So someone that might be a little sarcastic and is satirically talking about a situation. Conquain is a 5-line poem with 22 syllables. A Triolet is a French 8-line poem with repetition. A sonnet is a lyrical poem with 14 lines. You might be more familiar with sonnets from Shakespearean works. Shakespeare himself has 154 sonnets to his credit. Explain iambic pentameter. Blank verse is an unrhymed poetry in iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter can be a little complicated to understand, but the basis of it is that it kind of follows a heartbeat. So you're going to have what's considered stressed and unstressed words. And for example, delight. D is an unstressed syllable, and light would be a stressed syllable. Iambic pentameter not only follows a heartbeat type of feel, but that's basically what the terms mean as well, is that it is a rhythm or a meter that is established by the words in each line. Iambic pentameter broken up in words is the foot or the beat consisting of the unstressed syllable followed by the stressed syllable. Pentameter means 5, so simply just 5 meters, 5 lines of poetry written in an iambic pentameter has 5 feet or 5 sets of stressed and unstressed syllables. Here's an example. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Da-dum, 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 da-dum. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Iambic pentameter got popular with the Elizabethan and the Jacobin dramatists such as Shakespeare and John Donne. Iambic pentameter would not only be beautiful just because it has the rules of following a heartbeat that makes it smooth and feel almost effortless, but there is a lot of effort that goes into making sure that you have a poem that fits iambic pentameter. If you're someone that would really love the science of words, where you really need to get into the nitty-gritty of what makes a word stressed and de-stressed in the syllables, because delight is one word, but the syllables, some syllables are stressed and some are unstressed. So if you are someone that would delight themselves into the science of words and making it fit iambic pentameter and have fun not only finding the words to fit that type of style, but it's almost like a mathematical equation. So that's what I mean by the science of it. So if you would enjoy that type of work where you are figuring out the syllables and the right words, this might be a prose that fits for you. A Villanelle is a French poem with 19 lines and repetition. Back where this originated was actually in Italy, but it is considered a French type of poetry because that is where it was popularized. Now, back when this was first forming, poets would refer to their poetry as Villanelle because they didn't have structure to it, and it was more like a ballad talking about simplistic life and had more pastoral and rustic themes to it. Whereas today we understand Villanelle to be more structured. The form we know of it today is a highly structured poem made up of 5 tarsets, followed by a quatrain with 2 repeating rhymes and 2 refrains. Let me break that down for you. Now, a tarset is a group of 3 lines or verse rhyming together, which is connected with another rhyme with an adjacent tarset. Now, a quatrain is a stanza of 4 lines, especially one having alternate rhymes. So the end rhyming would be every other one alternating. So with the rhyming scheme, it is the first and third lines that rhyme with each other, and the middle lines also rhyme with each other as well. The scheme would look like, if you remember back in English class, the writing style of ABA, 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 ABAA. Now, a refrain is 2 repeating lines throughout the poem. The first refrain appears in the first, 6th, and 12th, and 18th line in the 19-line poem. The second refrain would appear in the 3, 9, 15, and 19 lines of the poem. And the refrains make up the last 2 lines. So to break that down and make it as simple as possible, a Villanelle is a poem with 19 lines where you have 5 tarsets, which are 5 3-line stanzas, and a quatrain with 4-line stanzas. This would definitely fit someone who loves the math of writing, who really wants to figure out the nitty-gritty of the structure of writing, rhyming along with having specific stanzas. It can be kind of fun to write within parameters. A Sestina is a French poem with 39 lines and repetition. Now, a Sestina also had its roots in Italy, but it was popularized in France. Now, this is another complicated poem. There are some key characteristics of a Sestina poem that makes it a Sestina. There are 6 stanzas, and the 6 stanzas each contain 6 lines. An envoy, which is 6 stanzas with a concluding 3-line stanza called an envoy or a tornada, and the end word pattern. So unlike many other forms of poetry, Sestina does not rely on rhyme. It's repetition. There's a specific pattern to the word repetition, and the end words of the first stanza reoccur in a specific pattern following the stanzas up into the envoy, the end. So this one can be kind of fun because you can come up with 6 lines 6 lines of poetry that overlap each other. So come up with your 6 lines, and then they will be alternated. So the pattern for that is going to be A, B, C, D, E, F, F, A, E, B, D, C, C, F, D, A, B, E, E, C, B, F, A, D, B, E, A, C, F, B, B, D, F, E, C, A. And the envoy at the end is ECA or ACE, with the BDF appearing in the course of the 3 final lines. I know, that's a lot, but this one can be really fun because you're just writing 6 sentences, poetic sentences, and then you write them out in your stanza, your 6-line stanza, and then you just rearrange the order of them. And it's really interesting what you can make with your sentences when maybe your first stanza procures a certain image in someone's mind, but once the order is changed, there's a whole new imagery that pops up. There's a whole new feeling or vibe to the poem. This would be really fun for someone who likes a little bit of potential chaos within some structured. I had a teacher once that told me that art is controlled chaos. So this would be someone's controlled chaos. And I say chaos because it seems a little chaotic to write 6 lines and then mix and match them up throughout the rest of the poem. A rondel is a 13 or 14 line poem with, you guessed it, repetition. This one is where you're having 2 lines repeat themselves from the beginning, the middle, and the end. So the Villanelle is probably the most complex with the structure of the stanzas, and gets a little less complicated with a Sestina, and then even less complicated with a Rondel. Now, a Ghazal is an Arabic poem with at least 10 couplets. Now let's break down a couplet. One couplet is 3 lines, 2 meters, and then the last one is the rhyming. That forms the couplet, and then you just have 10 of those. So the first 2 lines of every couplet is obviously different, but the last one at least has to rhyme. This form of poetry originated in Arabia around the 7th century. This was typically a more sad, romantic, poetic type to it. This was a little bit more melancholy, and it was definitely picked up by a lot of poets in the medieval times. A golden shovel type of poetry is where each word from one line of the poem serves as the end word for each line for a newly constructed poem. That's not explained very well, is it? Golden shovel poetry is where you take an existing poem and you're almost paying tribute to it. Now you pick a poem that inspired you, that you loved, something that touched you and you want to pay tribute to in a way. So you pick one line from that poem, and then each word in that poem is the last word of your line. A palindrome poem is where the poem is read the same frontwards and back. This would be kind of fun to do if you were someone that really enjoyed creativity, and it's almost like a brain bender in a sense. An ode poem is you're paying homage to something. You are writing an ode to something. It celebrates a person, a thing, a place, or an idea. An elegy is a poem that mourns a loss or a death. Now this one you can probably get a little creative with, because you can mourn something that hasn't necessarily died, but definitely feels gone. And you can kind of play on that a little bit. And you can write an elegy where you're mourning the loss of a life once lived, or a person that is no longer in your life. I think a traditionalist would would want you to stick with, no, this is about a person who has died. But even though there are some strict rules with poetry, at the end of the day, you're allowed to write whatever you want, and you can take these ideas and mold them to make your own type of poetry. An ekphrasis is a type of poetry that explains a piece of art. Now, I was first introduced to this type of poetry when I was in, oh goodness, I want to say like first grade. I know that might sound really odd because you're really young in first grade, but I have always been drawn to poetry and writing, and even though that might seem a little odd to say, I even from a young age, I was just really into that kind of stuff. And I remember reading a poem by somebody who made a piece of art and then they wrote a poem about it. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is brilliant, because not only are you expressing yourself through your artwork, you're also expressing your thoughts and feelings about the artwork or what you're trying to convey in written form as well. I thought it was like a brilliant mashing together of two great forms of expressing yourself. Of course, I'm an artist and I'm a writer, so of course I already love that because that's in my wheelhouse. But it doesn't have to be just about your artwork. This could be about any type of artwork. And that's what makes it really fun, because there's so much artwork out there and you can feel really inspired by artwork. Sometimes when I see artwork, I'm inspired to make my own because I get really excited about the colors that they used, or I really loved how they did something. It was Picasso who said that art is theft. And it took me a really long time to understand what that meant. And it basically is when, as an artist, you're looking at something someone has done and you really love it and enjoy it, and you are analyzing it and trying to figure out, like, how did they do it? And then you figure out their style. You see how they did something and you're like, oh, I'm going to do that. You do it as well. And that was my very first tip with my writing tips, was read as much as you can, because you will learn from the people who have gone before you. These people have written something, it's been published and it's been passed. And you reading as much as you can, you're seeing what is popular. You're seeing how someone else wrote something, and it gives you ideas on how to write yourself. Art is theft, whether you're writing or you're painting something, I guess. But anyway, if you get inspired by a piece of artwork and you want to write a poem about it, that would be considered an ekphrasis. A pastoral poem kind of touches back on the Villanelle a little bit, because the origins of a Villanelle poem were pastoral and rustic in nature, and it's changed to where Villanelle is definitely more structured now. But a true rustic pastoral poem is what would be considered, again, a pastoral poem. So this would fit somebody who really loves being out in nature, or the simplicities of an easy life, and they want to write about it. Think like cottagecore that you see on the internet, where everything's just like mellow and easy and comfortable. This would be a very comfortable poem. Now, an epic poem, this is going to be a story. Think about the Iliad, the Odyssey. I would definitely recommend looking up all these different types. I'm going to put below all the different types so that you can go and research them yourself, look at examples, get a poetry book, whether you buy it or you can get it free from the library and borrow for a little bit, and read the different types. Of course, there's the internet, so you can read poems on the internet as well, but man, nothing beats a good book in your fingers. So we've gone through all of these, and perhaps you are feeling a little inspired. And here's a way to tell what inspired you. The ones that I was going over, which ones did you get the most excited about? Which one were you like, ooh, not interested in that? Then obviously, maybe not do that one. Do the one that excited you the most. That is a good way to see what fits you, because you know what you like, even if you aren't always able to form the thought or the words to explain why you like something. It fits. I remember at one point in my life, my mom said that my style wasn't very good because it just seemed like it was too much of a hodgepodge of things. And I told her, I'm like, well, but that's eclectic. That's me. It's just all the different things that I like. It fits because it fits me. And even though it's a little odd, it fits me in the sense of it's all the things that I like, even if I can't always explain why I like certain things. This is a really good tip for most anything in life. If something excites you or you're passionate about it, it doesn't matter if it traditionally fits. If you like it, then that's what you should pursue. So if there's a type of poetry that got you excited and you're like, I really want to try that, then it's a good way to see that that's what would excite you, and that's the type of poetry that you need to practice on. And another little Tuesday tip inside of a Tuesday tip, try doing the hard one at some point. Really try to push yourself and your boundaries. It's only going to strengthen you as a writer, and you're going to grow and get better with time. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it. And if you enjoy seeing content about writing and art, and if you want to never miss an episode where I am sharing a tip about writing or art, please hit that notification icon so that you never miss an episode. I appreciate all the comments and likes that you guys give me. Please let me know below if you would like an even more in-depth version of this video, or if there's something that you hope that I go over in the future. Perhaps one of your ideas will be featured, and I will do a video over what you would like to hear about, whether it's an art tip or a writing tip. Comment it down below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!